All right, 9:15, so we will get going with part one of integrating Lion into PSU Auth. This does kind of focus on the Penn State authentication. However, this is just as good if you're using somebody else's Kerberos in your neck of the woods too. So it's basically making Lion clients work with Kerberos that's not on the box but over here somewhere else. But first things first, I would not be a geek if I did not do this. May the 4th be with you. All right, so this is two different sessions. The morning session today will be setting up Lion Client and getting your server set up so that this thing works. This is really easy to do if it's all not Lion. If it's Snow Leopard server and Snow Leopard client, this is a breeze. But as soon as you put Lion Client into the mix, everything changes. It gets to be a headache. Your Lion clients will not work while your Snow Leopard clients are sitting there working happily and you're trying to figure out what is going on. So that's what the first part of the session is. Then we'll break, and when we come back, it'll be managing those Lion clients within your infrastructure. My name is Roy Long. My problem with Macintoshes began in the fall of 1990 with a little Mac Plus that booted off of a floppy and local talk networks over an SE30 server. Through HyperCard, boy, that was cool. I did some HyperCard programming for special education and K-12 stuff back in the really early 90s. Spent 15 years as a professional broadcaster, playing with computers and automation and audio and that kind of stuff in the broadcasting realm. Went into K-12 education full-time back in 2000, worked for the intermediate unit as a consultant for 10 different school districts here in central Pennsylvania. I specialized in Macintosh and Windows networks and making them friendly and hug and sing Kumbaya and all that stuff. And then I came to Penn State in February of 2005, worked at the graduate school. We had, let's see, how many Macs were there? None. And when I left, right before I left, I hired a guy named Ryan Coleman, and he's here doing the Puppet thing, and he went to much bigger and better places, so Ryan's a great guy. And for the past couple of years, I've been with the Astronomy and Astrophysics department. We are straight up Mac and Unix shop. There's only 6 Windows machines on our network, and that's for the secretaries, but so we do a lot of science and research with Macs and on the Penn State network. 3 years ago, we tied them into Kerberos, and we do neat things like having NFS home directories for people so they can be logged in and have multiple presence all over the wire. And about a year ago, we consolidated all the technology departments within the college into one college-wide unit. And now my current position is IT lead for administration, which means I sit in an office and write policies, but I still run what's going on in astronomy. So now that you know all about me, now it's Scott's turn.
All right, Scott Gallagher. I work here at Penn State, System Administrator for Social Science Research Institute. Started out at Penn State probably about 3 years ago, the Applied Research Lab here. Everything I did there, I'm actually not allowed to talk about in here. We did government kind of contracting work stuff. Been working with Roy, and we had Jeremy Hill, who just recently left here at Penn State too. Been working on trying to get a Lion server and Lion clients working together into our Penn State Kerberos Auth, and then also leveraging everything within the 10.7 server environment, ASUS for Apple Software Update Services, Profile Manager to control all of our clients, and as well as MCX. So we have mobile accounts that actually sync our path space here at Penn State with the mobile accounts so that you can take your laptop or whatever device, go wherever you need to, and then when you come back and jack back into the network, everything syncs back up nice and neat with that.
I'm going to flip this so that I can have dual screens. Give me a second. Yep. No, that's backwards.
I think X will switch you back and forth between.
X?
Yes.
Cool.
Keynote, I believe X switches.
All right, cool. That makes me happy. All right, can someone tell me what time our scheduled break is supposed to be? Because I don't want to take you over it. 10:30? All right, a little over an hour. Very good. So Lion integration. 3 years ago in astronomy, when we did the Penn State Kerberos thing, we were going from our own local LDAP and local Kerberos with local accounts and local passwords and the server end was running on Linux. Our Linux boxes worked really well. However, we were having all kinds of problems with our Macs on the network. And it was because we were shimming the Macs. We were doing all kinds of stuff to shim the Macs to get it to play nice with our Open Directory and our local Kerberos. And all kinds of stuff on the Macs were breaking. Software updates were failing. Adobe updates were failing. Silly stuff was happening with printers. So I pulled back and I thought, all right, if we're going to do this and we're going to put it into a Macintosh environment, my number one goal is not to touch the client. Since we have the most number of clients, I want to do this with making 0 changes on the client, and I want it to work out of the box as Apple intended, because that's where we got ourselves into trouble. Every time that we had a problem with a Macintosh, it was because we broke something putting a shim in to make it work. So that was the number one goal, 0 changes to the client. And that was with Snow Leopard, but it was the same philosophy that we had several months ago when we started integrating Lion. Out of the box setup, not touching it at all. Basically plugging the wire in, joining it to our LDAP domain, and we were done. That was the goal. Make that work and everything will be okay. We needed to use the Penn State Kerberos with our local LDAP accounts. And here at Penn State, that lets us do single sign-on and all that stuff across all the different services, but it gives everybody one password, your main Penn State Access ID, your main identity across the entire university. That means we have to have local LDAP so that we can create the accounts, because we do networked home directories. And that's the big kicker with this. If you're not doing networked home directories, then you don't need local LDAP. You can just point this thing at Penn State LDAP and Penn State Kerberos and follow Justin's instructions up on the wiki, and you're done. But when you're doing network shares and network home directories, you've got to have local LDAP, which means Kerberos has to live somewhere else. We wanted this to be able to work with either 10.6.8 or 10.7 server, because we currently have in production a 10.6 server, but we're looking at going into 10.7, so we needed to make it work under both cases, so we had a migration path. The next thing that we wanted to have was that our working realm name, we wanted it to be machine name, or we wanted it to be our DNS name, which in this case was astro.psu.edu. We wanted this to be our DNS name and the realm name, not the server name .astro.psu.edu. A couple other departments had never gotten this to work. Every time they stood up a server, it'd be, sparky.astro.psu.edu would end up being their Kerberos realm, or their LDAP stuff, and that's not what we wanted. If Penn State can make it work with just dce.psu.edu, then we should be able to replicate the same thing in-house. We also wanted to do this making minimal changes to OS X server. For us, that meant, why destroy the KDC? That was another thing that we did when we stood up our original OS X server. We followed some instructions that said destroy the local KDC on 10 server and then replace edu.mit.kerberos and all this other stuff. And I said, why do you have to destroy the local realm? If you're not going to use it, leave it there. It gives you the ability to add in local accounts and do some neat things that are off of access. So anyway, and then the final point that we needed to have is all this working so that we can have network home directories via NFS or AFP. In our astronomy environment, and especially within math and several other places within the College of Science, we use network home directories across architectures. AFP is a bear on Linux, but NFS is the common denominator between everything, so we use NFS. In our typical environment, people spend less time at the GUI in front of the machine and a lot more time at a terminal or at a shell. So what our guys will do is they'll log in physically on this one console, and then they'll open up 10 different terminal windows and SSH to 10 different machines, and they'll start running processes all across the wire. And what enables them to get their job done is having this network home directory, so that whatever machine they connect to via SSH, they have all their scripts and everything else because their home directory follows them. So that's got to work. Okay, so those are the assumptions and those are our goals. And this is what we learned. The existing 10.6 installation instructions that were out there do not work when you bind your Lion clients. Snow Leopard works just fine, but there's something special with Lion. And there's lots of stuff special with Lion. Using those steps to bang against Lion server also fail miserably. So that's what we've learned so far. And we spent about 4 months trying to make it work. And this is what it boiled down to. You need to set up your OD master. You need to install the key tabs for the server. You need to tweak edu.mit.kerberos. and bind your clients and go. This is the same stuff we've all seen before, right? Yeah, you guys flying blind with this, or have some of you tried it, had mixed results, have it working? Kind of give me an idea of where you're at right now. Is it working for you? Okay. Does anybody have this working? Okay, I promise that I won't waste your time today. You will get something out of this. So these are the basic 4 steps. And this is really all you need to do to make it work. Not so fast. 10.6 likes this. All of your 10.6 clients will say, woohoo, let's go. Have a good day. Lion clients won't. They will fail. Lion clients will let you do Open Directory util and set the log to debug, and it will tell you lots and lots and lots of stuff. When I started working on this back in the fall...
Are you going to make these slides available?
Yes.
So you don't have to take notes?
Yes. And at the end, I'll give you a recap with the 10-step program to make it all work. So OD util, set log, debug, this works on Lion. It does not work on Snow Leopard. And when I started working on this back in November, I was pulling out my hair and I'm looking at these messages and blah, blah, blah. And I started doing some research and calling around. And that's when I found that Scott and Jeremy were working on the same project, because I saw Jeremy Hill, Penn State, answering somebody else's question. I'm like, ooh, picked up the phone. I called Jeremy, which is how I got here today. But I called a few other people. And I called Yadin Flammer, who works over at Arts and Architecture. And I said, yeah, but this is what the log says. And Yadin gave me one of the best quotes of last year. He said, but the logs lie. I said, really? I'd never really thought about that. He's like, that's not really what's going on. And I said, really? And once I took that and didn't trust the logs anymore, I made a little bit of progress. But that was a great quote for November, was the logs lie. And he was right in a couple of places. The logs were definitely lying. So Lion exits MIT Kerberos and enters in something called Heimdall Kerberos, which is neat. Heimdall's really neat. It works pretty much the same, but it just doesn't work with Lion and Snow Leopard. So we got to figure out what's making Heimdall Kerberos on Lion not to work with the way that everything else does. One of the things we learned is that Heimdall prefers UDP over TCP. That's key. Heimdall appears quirky over edu.mit.kerberos versus etc kerb5.conf. On Snow Leopard, kerb5.conf, it doesn't exist, and if you put it there, it won't be read, and it doesn't matter. On Lion with Heimdall, Heimdall will say, all right, I'll look at either one. Just let me know which one to look at. Actually, you can't tell me which one to look at, so I'll look at either one. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to tell you, don't put both of them there. So you get one. You get to choose one. One or the other doesn't matter, but don't put both. Either file is valid, but use only one. Now the setup. 10.6 works. It works really, really well, but it's really, really picky about the order of things and how you set it up. Remember I told you those 4 steps, 4 basic steps that everybody's got to do. And we've all been running those basic 4 steps. And I spent about 3 months figuring out that you don't do step 3 before step 1. And we put them all out on the whiteboard and we started moving the order around. And then we came up with this magic repeatable order that everything worked in. And as soon as you moved one step in a different direction, the whole thing would crash and burn. So we spent a lot of time. Carbon Copy Cloner was great. God, I love Carbon Copy Cloner. The next thing that we learned, I forgot to put on the slide, is whenever you're doing your testing, start from a Virgin Lion install or a Virgin Server install. Don't set it up, do OD, and then say, oh, well, that didn't work, and then demote the OD and start from scratch. It leaves turds. Don't do that. So every time you make a new iteration of testing, roll it right back to the Virgin state and bring it up again. Virgin install of 10.6 server. In our testing, we found that, yeah, you can run the updates all the way up to 10.6.8 and everything. You can do that, but in our testing, we found out that that doesn't matter. It will work once you do these steps with 10.6.0, and then you can run the combo updater on it after you do all the updates, and everything will continue to work just fine. The key thing at this point in the game is not to enable any services. Take it right out of the box, or however you're building it, and do not enable Open Directory. Don't enable any of that stuff yet. So here we go. Step number 1, Snow Leopard server, you're going to put Lion clients on your network. The very first thing after you boot is you're going to go get your key tabs from Penn State. Go to the key tab generator, make your key tabs, download the key tabs, and install the key tabs. Don't delete the one that's in there, just install them in addition to the key tabs that are there first. After you install those key tabs, reboot the box. That's one very crucial, important step. Reboot the box. So the key tabs go in first, then you reboot. Step number 3. Now we've got a freshly rebooted box with the Penn State key tabs for your domain. Then we enable Open Directory. And what we found is it looks at those key tabs before services get going. And if they're not there, nothing will work even if you put them in later. So that was one of the crucial things we found. Set your admin pass. We wanted the realm name to be department.psu.edu. It'll default and it'll come up to say machine name.department.psu.edu. Just whack everything in front of department and go with us. Unless you want it the other way. Doesn't matter to me. Step number 4. After you get that done and Open Directory is up and running, what you do is you go in and you massage edu.mit.kerberos. The green stuff is the important. DNS fallback equals yes. This lets your clients use DNS to look up who the KDC and the master servers and all that are. If you don't do that, you got to do it the old way by putting Sparky, Fido, and Offsite in there by hand for the KDCs. So one line will take the place of the whole realm section. Then the next thing to do is here, where the green stuff is, put your realm.psu.edu equals dce.psu.edu, and the same thing with a dot in front of it, your realm.psu.edu. And Yadin gave me some magic yumminess right here in yellow. Without this, connections back to Pass and UDrive and Win don't work. So you got to add these 4 lines to make the Kerberos connections back to Pass Space and UDrive and all that stuff work. Okay, so and this is all done server side. We haven't touched the client yet because that's the goal. We're not going to touch the clients. And then you reboot, and then neat things happen. After the box reboots, you've got your Open Directory, you got your key tabs. The local Kerberos realm is still running, but your clients aren't going to care because they're going to look over at DCE. But when the box reboots, we expected that edu.mit.kerberos living on the server would be the one that the server would reference time and time and time again. In practice, we found that it only reads that file once. The first time it reads it will be the last time that it reads it. Asterisk. So now you can go ahead and add a user, set the auth authority to point over to DCE for all your users, save the user, bind your line client, log in, and you're done. And at this point, everything works, and we thought we were done. We went, woohoo, yay, and we started putting line clients out in our network, and we were really, really happy. Here's where you go with your auth authority. So here's my user record, RAL20. You've got to enable the inspector tab in Workgroup Manager. It's in the preferences for Workgroup Manager. And here where it says authentication authority, this will have an auto-generated one that says Apple Password Server because it's supposed to look at the local Kerb realm. And you're going to have another corresponding line that looks just like it down here somewhere. Don't touch the bottom one because it's auto-generated. Just go up here and, whoops, whoa. Go up here and delete the Apple Password Server, and you change this to be semicolon Kerberos v5, 2 semicolons, the access ID at dce.psu.edu, semicolon dce.psu.edu. And that changes the authentication authority for the client. So at that point, it will no longer look at the local KDC on the box. It'll look over at Penn State's DCE, and then you don't have to destroy the local one, so what's the point, right? Okay. That's interesting. That was something. So at this point, Lion clients will log in, Snow Leopard clients will log in, and everything's hunky-dory. No problems whatsoever, right? However, I said we were going to do Lion clients out of the box, right? On all of our Snow Leopard clients, didn't we push out edu.mit.kerberos for all of our Snow Leopard clients to make them work? We did. But we're talking Lion clients now. We haven't touched the Lion clients at all. All we did was bind it. We haven't given it edu.mit.kerberos, so how the heck do the Lion clients know not to talk to the Apple KDC and to go over to DCE's KDC? That blew me away. I haven't touched the Lion client, but I log in, everything works, and I drop to a terminal and I do a K-list, and I've got a ticket. So now I'm standing there scratching my head going, wow, that's really cool. What kind of voodoo is working in the background to have this happen? Freaky stuff. Remember, I told you a couple minutes ago that the server will only read that file once. So something wonky is going on with the server. It's giving some of that information back to the Lion client somehow. It's knowing where to go. You try to do that on the Snow Leopard client, it fails. Snow Leopard client won't log in unless you give it edu.mit.kerberos, right? But don't worry, this will break. This will work until you leave the office. I guarantee it. As soon as you leave the office, this will break. Actually, we did replicate it breaking. It breaks when you do nice things to the server. Like say, ooh, server's up and running, cool, now I can do all the rest of the stuff that I was gonna do, like I can run those software updates. Or I can plug in another USB NIC, or I could plug in another NIC, or make another configuration change to the server. Everybody's logged in and everybody's fine, and then you'll leave the office and Frank faculty will log out at the end of the day, and he'll come in the next morning and won't be able to log in. And then your world will die. That's pretty much what happened to us. So it went back to the drawing board, figuring out what was causing this thing to break. And we were guessing that it had something to do with how cool Lion was with not needing to have that edu.mit.kerberos file installed locally on the client. What's going on? On the server, this appears to be read during the initial configuration. That's it. It just reads it once, and everything's up and running, and everything's cool. Until you do something nice or you make a configuration change. Then it no longer looks at the local kerb5.conf or edu.mit.kerberos, it's got to get that information from somewhere else. So where is it coming from? Subsequent boots appear to pull from auto-generated data. So on your clients, when you bind them to your your Open Directory server, and it pulls down what the server auto-generates as edu.mit.kerberos. It's doing it from some data store somewhere. So we went out to look for where we could find that. And I told you about doing nice things like software update. Okay, so how do we fix it? Here we go. This is what looks to be an auto-generated file. Warning, this file is automatically generated. If you wish to make changes, delete the next two lines. It tells you where it was auto-generated from and the generation ID of the server, and then here's your libdefaults. Now this is just a copy of an auto-generated one. Yes, this is a tweaked and fixed one, but it would look the exact same. The top lines anyway, the auto-generated magic that the client starts looking at from any OS X server that you would set up and then bind a client to. This is what gets automatically generated, and for years on Snow Leopard and on Leopard, this is what we were deleting and replacing with the Penn State standard edu.mit.kerberos. Back in the old days, this used to have a Realm section with Fido and Scooby and Offsite and all that jazz, right? Okay, we found it. On 10.6 server, here's where it lives. You go to Workgroup Manager, you turn on the Inspector tab, you click the little target, and you change the pull down to Config. And then there's two sections, one for the Kerberos KDC, and then one for the Kerberos client. Select Kerberos client, select XML plist, and then hit the Edit button. That's where all the information for the auto-generated edu.mit.kerberos file lives. It brings up an editor window, and voila. This is what the server reread after you made a configuration change. This is what the server reread after a boot. Somehow, they've got to be setting a flag that says they looked at the hard-coded one once, and then for other things, they're failing to look at it again, and they're pulling out of the auto-generated stuff. So this is what you need to fix. So we copy that file, and I paste it into an editor, and the auto-generated one has a stamp at the bottom, says generation ID with a random number, and every time that you make a change to the system, it increments this by 1. When your clients check in with the server, if that needs to be updated, if the number's different or greater than on the server side, it will pull it down at certain intervals. It will, in our testing, we found that it pulls it down on the first login after a reboot. So if everybody's logged in and you just have them log out, when they log back in again, it won't pull this down. We found that it's only on the first login following a reboot. But don't worry, there's a way to force that and if you don't want to reboot all your boxes. Astronomy is kind of weird. We're a 24/7, 365 kind of operation. Our astronomers do most of their stuff in the middle of the night, and then they have jobs that run for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. So rebooting a box can have devastating effects on research when you have 10 people sharing a box and all 16 CPU cores and all 32 gigabytes. We got a guy who says gigabytes, I love that. All 32 gigabytes of RAM on the box, and they're doing stuff, and if you reboot it and it's been running for 3 weeks and they just killed their research, they come and kill you. So rebooting the boxes on our side is not always a good thing. Okay, so you go and you fix that file to match your hand-coded one. And it's just XML. Just put in your key tags and put in your strings and make it all match. Change the auto-generated number by 1. Paste it back in and hit OK, and then hit save. And this will fix the server. As a matter of fact, you never have to touch the server's static edu.mit Kerberos file again, because it'll look at this. There's a neat little button here that says load from file. So you could take this and you could save it into TextEdit or VI or your favorite text editor, and you could spend an hour making the thing look right and making sure all your tags and everything were right, and then you could hit that import from file button, and it would churn and churn and churn and churn and churn and crash. This button works the same way on Lion Server too. So actually, I don't think Lion Server has that button. Maybe it does. I don't know. So yeah, and that was repeatable too. It crashed every time that I tried to use it. So just copy and paste, make your life easy. And then hit the save button. That's important. I forgot to do that once. Lost a day on it. Okay, so now you fixed your auto-generated edu.mit.kerberos file. So what do you need the static one around for, right? Delete the thing. And then reboot the box. The box come up, read the auto-generated stuff, magically all your Lion clients start working again. Snow Leopard didn't matter. Snow Leopard didn't care. Everything was working fine on Snow Leopard. But Lion clients are working again. Yay! We're done.
One question. So Snow Leopard doesn't read that autoconfig?
Oh, it does. Snow Leopard does read the autoconfig. But what was stopping the Lion clients from logging in after the server reread whatever it was rereading, Snow Leopard clients were like, woohoo, I'm fine. That's what's different. The Heimdall implementation of Kerberos under 10.7 is acting in ways that we didn't expect it to versus what Snow Leopard does. And we're still chasing down a couple of things. In this model, Snow Leopard clients continued to work the entire time. It was only the Lion clients that broke, which makes no sense, right? Because at that point, all the Snow Leopard clients had edu.mit.kerberos on them, right? And they were working just fine. In our test environment and in the machines that we put out in the field, we didn't know yet in the process that we could do the auto-generated thing. So we were slapping edu.mit.kerberos on the Lion clients. So as far as we were concerned, they should have continued to work. Okay? They didn't. They just quit. It is important to note that this auto-generated edu.mit.kerberos file, when it comes down on your Snow Leopard clients, you can go look at it. It's there in library preferences edu.mit.kerberos. You can go look at it and you can see the auto-generated number and you can make sure that it matches what you have on your server. Yay. So the server no longer cares about the static one, so you delete it and reboot and it pulls down its own auto-generated file. Clients pull this on the first login following the reboot. And 10.6 clients, you can force an update on them if you don't want to reboot them. There's a neat little command that is Kerberos autoconfig-u. This has to be run as root, so sudo it or use Apple Remote Desktop to do it, however you want to do it. And that'll pull it down and update all the clients. Kerberos autoconfig does not exist on Lion. It's not there. Though I've been told, and I tried it once, that if you copy the binary over and you run it, that it works. Yeah, that's a weird one. Each time that you change this file, if you add anything to libdefaults, if you add anything to the domain realm section, make sure you auto-update it or increment the number by 1. In all actuality, once I got this up and running, I never touched it again. I mean, because really how often are you in there tweaking stuff? You kind of set it and then it's good for life kind of thing. But in your testing, if you add stuff, make sure that you change that number or the clients won't care. So 10.6 clients will have the edu.mit.kerberos file. Verify your version. On 10.7, weird stuff abounds. edu.mit.kerberos does not exist anywhere. Ain't there. But the clients are happily logging in, and you can do a K-list, and you can see your ticket. Curb5.conf also doesn't exist. Ain't there. But obviously, the Lion client is getting the data from somewhere. You're getting logged in. You're getting your tickets. Stuff works. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. Actually, where's Lion storing this stuff? I have no idea. I will personally thank you via email if you find it. I have nothing else to give you but a thank you. Maybe a cup of coffee if you're still here. I have no idea where it's going. I have an assumption that it's being written into a database on the fly, but it's not in a flat file anywhere that I've found. I have no idea. No idea where it's going. The Heimdall documentation doesn't say that it's putting this stuff anywhere. As a matter of fact, the Heimdall documentation references a whole bunch of flat files that don't exist. And I got a feeling that Apple's pulling it out of the LDAP schema. And we'll look at some of the Lion LDAP stuff here in a little bit. But I haven't found it yet. I have no idea where it's going. And that just may be the key to making these steps work with Lion Server. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing good. Lion Server. Actually, let me stop here for a second. At this point, do we have any questions about the setup, about the implementation, war stories from your side where you got stuff to work, where you didn't, anything like that?
I got to the same part you did.
Okay.
I looked at the the config file on the OD server, but I did not notice the auto-generated any.
If you touch that file first,
Yeah.
it will never overwrite it. If those auto-generated lines are not there, it'll never overwrite it, ever. Okie doke. So Lion Server. There's some syntax differences with Heimdall when you set up your key tab file. And there's some syntax differences with edu.mit.kerberos. Heimdall, or Lion Server, same thing, out of the box. Do your key tabs first. Reboot. The syntax is different. It is ktutil, and then copy, and then the name of your key tab, and then the destination file. So with Snow Leopard Server, you would do ktutil, and then you could issue all the commands and then write the file at the end. With Heimdall, it's different. It's a ktutil, copy, and the destination file for each key tab. So that's one of the big things. And the bottom here, I just have a little command to list it so I can see what it looked like. It should be pretty barren, except for the ones you just stuck into it. Then set up Open Directory. I used the same steps as 10.6. When I got with Jeremy and Scott, I found out they were using server.app to get theirs set up. There's two different ways that we can do it. They got to do the exact same situation that I did. So at this point in the game, I'm assuming that the steps are doing the same kind of stuff and that I don't have any wonkiness to worry about. But I'm going to go back and test it some more. Now on Lion Server, choose your weapon, edu.mit.kerberos or etccurb5.conf. Doesn't matter, but only use one. And there's some syntax differences here. What we used to say before was DNS lookup equals true. Heimdall now splits into, I got ahead of myself. That's the wrong one. Not forwardable. Crud, there's a bug in my code. All right. Disregard that. I will show it to you in a second. There's two other parameters here that we're working with. One is forwardable and one is proxyable, and this has to do with how the server is going to handle getting tickets from the Penn State KDC and talking back to the client. Okay. Now, the inspector tab does not work in Lion Server. It's gone. So you've got to use directory utility, which has been augmented to do some of this stuff. So in Lion, you go to Directory Utility, System Library Core Services, and click on Directory Editor, and now everything looks just like the Inspector tab does in Snow Leopard and Leopard. So you click on Kerberos Client, and it's in the same place. XML plist, go to the bottom, and fix your auto-generated file. At this point, The 10.6 clients will start working. Everything's cool. It's just like we did back in the Snow Leopard days. The syntax in the Kerberos doesn't seem to break the Snow Leopard clients, which is good. I was worried about this. I was worried about changing those parameters on the file and breaking Snow Leopard, but they continue to run along happily, so I think they're just ignoring the ones that they don't know about. Cool, I'm fine with that. But Lion clients still fail miserably. Lion server, same setup, same order, same auto-generated file with the updates for the Heimdall Kerberos, and the Lion clients at this point are failing to log in. They just don't work. So this is where we were in our testing process. If you bind and unbind, make sure you reboot between steps. It's inconsistent whether it works or whether it doesn't if you don't do that. Your mileage may vary. Start the server setup from Virgin. Don't demote it and then try the setup all over again. It leaves turds all over the place. Mixed results if you do that. And Carbon Copy Cloner via Thunderbolt is way cool. Holy cow. We've got a Mac Mini with one of those Promise 12 terabyte Thunderbolt RAIDs that's just faster than, oh my God, is it fast. And Carbon Copy Cloner from that thing over Thunderbolt just rocks. It's awesome. So Lion Client. Lion Client and Lion Server, just not happy with making 0 changes to the Lion Client. It just doesn't work. We're still working out why. There's got to be something different with Lion Server. I mean, think about it. We're taking a virgin Lion client right out of the box. We're plugging it into a known working Snow Leopard server install with Snow Leopard working clients, and everything's perfectly fine, and it works. You take that exact same client and you bind it to a Lion server with the same steps, and it doesn't work. Now you tell me where the problem is. It's not in the client. It's over on the server. So we began looking to shim the clients, which is what we didn't want to do, to make them work. Oh, by the way, Snow Leopard clients with the same setup and the same steps on Lion server, yeah, they work. Doesn't make any sense. So what we ended up doing is making some minor changes to etc pamd.authorization. Lion depends heavily on PAM to do your login stuff. Back in the old days, before we got this working under Snow Leopard, we used to change etc authorization. Remember that? etc authorization? In Lion client, that doesn't work.
You know, they said it's completely deprecated, but I've heard some people say they've made changes to it and it has worked, or had done things for their particular setup, like Active Directory.
Yep, in Active Directory, that's weird, because when I first started making phone calls around about this, and I was talking with Yadin, his setup includes Active Directory in the mix. So he's got Active Directory in the mix, and his realm name includes the server name. So those are the key differences between what we were doing and what Yadin was doing. And his stuff was working over there. So yeah, I may bite the bullet and not take the server name out of the realm name and just leave it alone and see what that does. But that's kind of silly, I thought. Make it work the way it's supposed to. So the default PAMD authorization file includes these 2 extra things over on the end. Use KCM init, and on this one it says null OK. Making it work, we changed optional to sufficient, and we got rid of those 2. Woo, logins work. Yay. But that's not all. Excuse me. Then you kick on the screensaver and can't log in again. That's bad. That's bad. That always happens after you leave the office too, thinking that everything works. So the screensaver, etc pamd screensaver, same kind of deal. Use KCM init, null OK, optional required. We got rid of those 2. Change this to sufficient. Then you can unlock your screensaver. That's cool. But then our astronomers have to SSH into all these machines, and SSH wasn't working, and that was bad. So now on to pam.dsshd, and it looks like this out of the box with the word optional right here, and we changed that to sufficient. Yay! And now SSH connections work. So we've got 3 little shims to etc pamd under authorization, screensaver, and SSHD, and now the Lion clients are working fine. It's silly. It works. But when this conference is over and I'm back at the office, I'm back into testing again, trying to figure out what the changes are that I need to make on Lion server to get this to happen. So here's what we've learned so far. Lion and Snow Leopard clients behave as expected without any shims or any craziness or any voodoo if you use Snow Leopard server. It just works. Lion Server doesn't work with Lion clients. The Snow Leopard clients work just fine. We know that Snow Leopard has the MIT Kerberos, which prefers TCP. That's what we know. We know that Lion has the Heimdall Kerberos, which prefers UDP. But the changes that we made to shim the Lion client with Lion Server had nothing to do with the protocol talking Kerberos. Not a thing. So I say that's bupkis. Protocol doesn't matter. And even when we've got our Snow Leopard server with our Lion clients, they're working just fine. We made 0 changes to the Kerberos protocol that the server was speaking, or that the client was going to ask on. So again, we're not going to chase that anymore. TCP, UDP, who cares? It works. Problem's got to be server side. And we're searching for the Lion server solution. There's definitely stuff going on Lion server with Heimdall that's not documented. You can read all the man pages on the KDC that's on the Lion server. You can read all the man pages on kerb5.conf. You can go through all that stuff. A bunch of the files don't exist, which means Apple's stuffing it into either a plist file that's undocumented or into the Open LDAP data store. I'm still looking for it. It's got to be in there somewhere. We did run some packet sniffers on the wire to see the tickets and the TGTs going back and forth between the client, the server, and DCE. We're going to do some more of that to see if we can find a breakdown in the process. I'm pretty sure we're going to find it between Lion server and DCE is where I'm pretty sure that it's going to happen. And I do need to note that in our testing environment, when we put all this up, we went so far as to put these things on the same subnet, 0 firewalls, to make sure there was no problem with routing. It's not a routing problem. It's something else going on with the server. But once again, the goal is not to make any changes to the client, because everybody knows what happens when you start putting shims on the Apple clients, and then Apple does something like a software update or changes something, and then you spend the next 2 weeks trying to figure out what they just broke. Yeah. So let's recap. Here's your 10-step process to making it all work. Get your key tabs first, then reboot the box, then enable your Open Directory service, then put in your edu.mit.kerberos file on the server side. We haven't touched the client yet. Reboot the server, it reads that file just once. Add your users, fix the auth authority, bind a client, test your logins, fix your auto-generated edu.mit.kerberos. Actually, you could do that immediately after rebooting the server, but I put it last so that I could test my client logins first, because I wasn't going to go to all the trouble messing with that XML file if the clients weren't working yet. Reboot the box after you delete the static edu.mit.kerberos file, and you're done. 10-step process, making it all work. Snow Leopard server, works with Lion server too, but you still got to add the 3 shims to etc PAMD. That's it. Any questions? Yay. Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get into this in the second half, but have you used any mobile accounts in this setup on the laptop?
No. We did not, because they're NFS home directories, so if we were doing anything like that, we can't do it. The amount of data that these guys have in their home directories is astronomical, no pun intended. And doing that with a mobile account just would not work.
We are doing it though with SMB shares where I work. We don't have people using a ton of space, so we are using mobile accounts and syncing stuff back to their past home directories then there. But we don't have anybody everything's Word doc, PowerPoints, nothing like, they're not keeping their actual research data on their laptop that resides somewhere, on the Linux server or something to that end. So
But it's syncing their
with 10.7
password from PSU auth, for example, because we use AD because our clients are kind of all over the place and it just doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, 10.7.3 definitely fixed. We had syncing issues when we were running anything 10.7.2 and prior. You would get errors where the mobile sync couldn't create like the desktop or documents folder on your path space. So we would either have to have users manually create them or go and just do it for them. 10.7.3 fixed that, where it automatically now creates the folders, and the syncing is much better and much faster now. And that's just through SMB shares, though. That's not through NFS?
Our initial testing started with 10.7.2 out of the box. When we got this working, it was working with 10.7.2 and 10.7.3 and Snow Leopard Server. We had zero difference between the two versions of the client. In their testing with Lion Server, they only got their stuff working with 10.7.3, right? You had wonkiness with 10.7.2 from what Jeremy said.
It worked well. We had issues when we went to 10.7. When we took the clients to 10.7.3, you couldn't log in if you were jacked in. You had to unplug, you had to use the local cache, and then you could plug in.
Yeah.
And then we were able to fix that by using the steps, by editing the stuff in AMD auth and stuff like that.
Was that related to the documented bug in 10.7.2 where it doesn't check the password information at all?
That's what I would assume.
Yeah. Just a couple other things that I want to tell you about our network at Astronomy. We do use the NFS, we use NFS to mount the home directories. But we also use NFS with the auto mounter to mount the home directories. So let's see if I can back up here and show you where it's at. Yeah, here we go. From the inspector tab, if you change this to auto mount map, it'll show you your auto mount map for the entire domain. And we have the map massaged for faculty and for staff and for UGrads and for all of that stuff. So that's another change that we made, but it has no bearing on the outcome of whether this worked or whether it didn't, because we tested it with local accounts local on the machine. We tested it with AFP and all that stuff. So it gets the location of your home directory by looking you up through AutoMount, but that wasn't something that stopped this working or that it made it work. It's just something that we enabled. That also lets us do dynamic mounts across the entire network. So say, for instance, you've got a research workstation on your desk and you plop in 2 terabytes worth of storage on the side and you say, hey, I need to share this via NFS to my entire work group. Then I don't have to go and massage etcfs tab on 20 different machines. I just go here, add the mount point, and you tell your guys, oh, here's the mount point. They can CD mount point, bang, and get it. AutoMount's awesome. Love AutoMount. But that had no bearing on whether or not the logins worked or the logins didn't.
Yeah, I ended up coming to that conclusion differently because Lion will pay attention to a KRB.5 conf file if it's not bound to a server. And
Yes.
Make some changes in the ham directory using default principal, and so that what was happening, I was put that in, I do a KNet after logging in, I could get a ticket, but as soon as I bound to a directory service,
Dead. Yep, that's very true. Yep. If you're bound. Yep. If you're not bound, good to go. And that was another thing that we found too. Once we bound it, and that file didn't exist on Lion Client, and neither did edu.mit.kerberos, and you log into a K-list and you got a ticket, we scratched for a couple hours trying to figure out where is it storing this stuff, where did it get it from, because it obviously knows about it somewhere. I have not put a sniffer on the wire to see that every time it does something silly like a lookup if it's talking to the server. Yeah, that would just be dumb. Why would they do that? So I haven't debugged that.
what happened for us is because we didn't destroy the KDC on our server initially, just left it, we weren't using it. When we do a KNet after we were bound, it's like, wait, this is, in our realm, it's just a simple ECI.edu.
Right.
It would show the
The old one.
server name.
That's right.
But
But it still does. On our Lion clients,
Yeah.
it still does. If I log into the working Lion client, shimmed or not, 10.6, 10.7, doesn't matter, and I do a K-list, I get the ticket from DCE, okay? I do a KENIT, and it says, enter the password for REL20 at astro.psu.edu.
Really?
Yes. But I got the ticket on login from DCE, not from Astro.
That's really weird. Even though the configuration file, the Kerberos client is, wow, okay.
There's crazy stuff going on with Lion. There's crazy. Snow Leopard doesn't do that. Snow Leopard, woohoo, you're happy. Lion, if I do just KENIT on Snow Leopard, it asks for the DCE password and it's fine.
It behaves.
Yes. So again, Heimdall talks about flat files that are supposed to exist in places and don't. Oh, so over here on Lion, this is not Lion. Let's go to Lion. Where's Lion? That's all. Where's directory utility?
Oh, yeah, you can use directory utility from the client side too.
Here it is.
As long as you log in, yeah.
Right. Okay. So, Heimdall taught me this. Snow Leopard didn't, but Heimdall taught me this. Here's directory utility on Lion. This is where we go to fix our auto-generated file by clicking on Kerberos client and then the XML plist, right? At the top, you'll see a section that is my realm name, astro.psu.edu. That is the KDC's configuration info, okay? So it looks just like, and it uses the same syntax as curb5.conf. Same syntax. However, the top section doesn't say lib defaults, it says KDC. And then it's got the realm name, and then it's got some happy little parameters on the time that the tickets can live and whether they're forwardable or whether they're proxyable to be able to kick them back to the clients and do all that kind of stuff, right? And what I learned by reading the Heimdall man pages is that's supposed to be like kdc.conf locally as a flat file. Doesn't exist. It only lives here in LDAP. Only lives here in LDAP. The man page also tells me that these directives are read before etccurb5.conf is read, so they can trump anything that you put there so the KDC still works and you don't break it. Hello?
But when you log in, it doesn't pay any attention to that.
This only runs on the KDC. Remember, we're fixing the server, not the client, so this isn't going to be running on the client. Well, actually, the clients do kind of have their local store for the local accounts on the client, but we're not working on that. So I've spent a couple of days working with this, saying, all right, well, let's tell the KDC that the tickets are proxyable and forwardable and all that jazz, and we can actually specify TCP if we want to talk in there, and I can go into this file, or I can go into the auto-generated file, and I can say, all right, well, what I want to do here is I want to tell it realms equals dc.psu.edu, and I want to say speak to Sparky and Scooby and offsite with TCP only on port 88, and I can do all that stuff. They go, all right, here we go, bind a line client, log in, fail. So none of that, to my knowledge, has worked yet. So that's like, Edison made, a light bulb after 10,000 tries, and he said, yeah, but I can tell you 10,000 ways not to do it. I could spend the next 27 minutes telling you the other ways that didn't work for me, in the lab. I think the magic lives here somewhere. I do think it does on the server side. I think it lives in a combination between the KDC setup and the auto-generated file. There's a lot of parameters in there, and there's a couple of things that are undocumented. I've seen people put in the app section, the application section in the auto-generated file, or in edu.mit.curb or etccurb5.conf, which is supposed to tell application-specific directives on what to do. And some people use this for web browsers, and some people use this for FTP and that kind of crap. I saw somebody had a section that said PAM, and I went, woo! So now I could tell PAM to specify some directives so I don't have to shim the client, right? Yeah, that doesn't work yet. That's still a work in progress. But somebody's shimming PAM that way. So I'm going to spend some time on that.
So under Snow Leopard, we had all this working actually without an open directory at all.
Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, cool until we tried to create a line.
So you were pointing them directly at DCE.
Well, I'm not here at Penn State.
Okay.
So yeah, I pointed Kerberos actually at an AD KDC.
Yep.
And then I inherited a NIST environment.
Yep.
And we use that for all our directory services.
Same deal, yeah. So your home directories are coming from NIS.
And NFS home directories and the whole thing.
Right, so NFS home directories, your directory store is NFS, probably running on or NIS on Solaris, and your Kerberos is over at Active Directory. So you have the exact same thing that we have here at Penn State. You've got your local accounts in some directory, in your case was NIS, and your Kerberos authority is over here, and NFS was the exact same steps.
If they're hiding a bunch more stuff in the LDAP store that the line client is using to get itself configured, that explains an awful lot about. Because we migrated up from NIST to Open LDAP, but it's just a totally generic Open LDAP store. Just, basically all it has is accounts and groups in it.
Right.
But if there's extra information that's hiding in the LDAP store on the OD server, that would explain a lot why we haven't gotten anywhere with that.
Good point. I'm going to come back to something that you just said. The Macs are perfectly happy living with your directory stored in NIS. That's worked from the beta days, the 10.0 beta days, and that's cool. Again, I say that the Lion client is working fine out of the box with the Snow Leopard server, and if it's not working out of the box with the Lion server, then the problem's going to be on the Lion server, so I need to find out what's not talking right there. Something that we learned before we went back to OS X server when we had Open LDAP running on Linux, we were doing what we thought was the right way to do it by putting the user's home directory NFS auto-mounted in /users on the box. That broke a whole bunch of stuff. What it broke was every application that tried to drop files into /users/shared. iTunes, Adobe updates, Microsoft Office, printer stuff, because the auto mount was replacing /users with the home directory, okay? And since users shared didn't exist, it was a big problem. So when we went with our OS X server implementation, we left /users alone, and we moved our user home directories to mount in /astro. So that's unique now across all of our platforms. None of the astronomers had to change their paths again because it was all uniform. And the Mac could care less if it lives in /astro or in whatever you want to call it, just as long as you don't step on /users. And then everything started working again. The Adobe updates worked, the Office updates worked, iTunes worked, somebody wanted to share the library, yay. So that was important for us. I don't know where you're mounting those home directories, but don't overwrite /users or the clients get unhappy.
Yeah, from what we've seen too, I mean, even moving from like 10.7.x up to 10.7.3, we were able to fix stuff and it improved stuff. So from what I understand, I think 10.7.4 is close to being released. So it'll be interesting to see what it breaks or, fingers crossed, hopefully fixes for us too. And one thing to note too for the key tabs, the only key tab you actually need to get it to work is the host
key tab. Yeah.
We thought we needed host and LDAP, but we were only using host for our end, and that's it.
The other key tabs that were in here, I'll rewind back and show you. The other key tabs that were here, key tabs, there they are. The other key tabs that we installed let us Kerberize the rest of the services. So there's the AFP server key tab, the CIFS key tab, the host key tab. We also put in an LDAP one and we put in the NFS one. But like Scott said, the only one that you need to have the authentication work is the host key
you'll
tab.
still need the other ones if you're doing those
If you're doing those
but
services, right.
If all you're using it for is just the authorization part on your end to pass along the authentication part off to your Kerberos end, then all you need is the host key tab and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played at all with NFS v4?
Yeah, actually, our production box is a V3 box right now running on Linux. We've played with V4 under OS X. I'll give this up. This was kind of quirky. The Lion clients, when you have a successful login, in our production environment with the V3 server, will successfully log you in. Check this out. Will give you your desktop background. So what does that tell you? It did a read across the wire, right? It got something, okay? And then it will sit there. No menu bar, no dock, no icons, no nothing. It will sit there for upwards of about 60 seconds. And then, poof, there's your menu bar, there's your dock, there's your desktop icons, and everything's fine. In the test environment, using NFS v4, you log in, bang, everything's there. But in our production environment with the v3 server, it will sit there, only on Lion client, for between 30 and 60 seconds and appear. Now Lion does a neat thing where it will restore your applications that you had open, preferences, your terminals, your web pages, all that stuff. Okay, this is cool. They all appear. If you had them up, they will be there. But the Finder doesn't kick in, and the dock doesn't kick in. So you can't do anything. But look at your pictures. Go get a cup of coffee. Come back. 60 seconds later, everything works. So there's a difference we noted between V3 and V4. Doesn't happen with AFP, doesn't happen with SMB, only happens with NFS on our production V3 server, which we're not going to change. So we just told the people that are running Lion clients after you log in, just go for a walk, talk to your neighbor, come back.
For those of you that are here at Penn State doing or either doing this or want to do this, we are going to create something on the wiki so that we can update stuff, what we've done so far, and then what we will hopefully future figure out. When Justin sends out, we'll actually add just a slide in there with a link in there whenever we create the PDFs for Justin to send out to everyone. So you can follow along or even add input if you find stuff to help us out.
Yep. Any other questions? Comments?
Do you guys have a problem with expired tickets loading up in the keychain?
With which tickets?
Excuse me?
With what?
Expired tickets?
No, we didn't have a problem with the expired tickets and the keychain. What we do have a problem with is when you change your PSU password and you log in, and Safari and the other applications will complain that your keychain password doesn't match your login password. And it happens so infrequently once a year that we still have to go and hit the same people again every year and tell them how to do it. But we didn't have a problem with the tickets backing up in the keychain. Or at least we haven't been made aware of that. But I will write that down so that I can go check that out when I get back to the office next week.
For us, because they keep piling up, Kerberos eventually stops using the valid TGT. And
Really?
all the services don't work. So unless I do a kstroy-a to clear the whole thing out, can't use Outlook, can't use any mounted SharePoints, nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's your setup?
We're AD.
You're AD?
Yep.
So you're AD for your KDC. So you have your edu.mit.kerberos file pointing at DCE, but you have the client bound to Active Directory. No changes to PAMD or no changes to authorization.
Nope. Pretty much just bind to AD and go.
Did you put on a static edu.mit.kerb file at all, or did you just bind?
Just bind.
And you're using local accounts, but you're using Penn State Auth with your AD.
Well, we're using mobile accounts.
You're using mobile accounts, but you're still using your Penn State password.
Well, you say Penn State password.
Your Access ID password, your main, like
Yeah.
if you would log into webmail, that's the password. So your AD is set up with the cross-realm curb over here. Interesting. Interesting. I'd like to see how that behaves if you put it on a static edu.mit.curb file and not depend on AD. I'd like to see if you still have that problem staticking the file. Yeah. Yeah. Because AD may not be clearing the tickets, which is why they're getting jacked up in the keychain.
Right.
But if you put the file there, then it's talking directly to DC instead of going through Active Directory.
Yeah.
Yeah, give that a try.
Okay.
Yeah, just the standard one that's up on the wiki. No changes to it. Just plop it in there.
State either.
What's that?
Not Penn State.
You can copy the one that we have and just change the names of the realm. Yeah. So basically, it's
It's on the downloads page, though, isn't it? Or is it somewhere else?
you can Google it. If you Google PSU, if you Google edu.mit.kerberos and site:/psu.edu, you'll find it.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to, if you massage the file, I'll show you what it looks like. If you massage the file, it will look like this. So, where's my clicker? In libdefaults, you want to have default realm equal your main realm. So whatever that is, wherever the real KDC lives. DNS fallback equals yes. This assumes that you have SRV records in the DNS for the main realm. And then domain realm, this would be your Active Directory realm name equals the main realm name. And then the same thing with the period in front of it, and then the realm name. And then everything should be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what that would do. The other stuff down here, like I said, was just to make pass work Kerberized if you'd connect to it. Good, that's good.
So you say this is on the wiki,
Yeah, this is
publicly available wiki?
these steps with this edu.mit.curb file have been up on the wiki for a long time.
That's public.
Yep, no, it's only Penn State. Yep, it's only Penn State. However, you'll have this stuff on the slides when we send it out to everybody.
Can you get a Friends of Penn State account and log into the wiki, I wonder?
I don't know.
That might be worthwhile to check out.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we'll have them, yeah, like Rick said, we'll have them in the slides. So you'll have them.
yep.
And, or just email us and we'll gladly pass along information if you need it to.
Yep. And what we're going to do with the wiki after this is over, we're going to start one specifically for this project so that Friends of Penn State account should get you access to it. Is anybody up in the booth? No. Oh, Jay, do you know if a Friends of Penn State account will let you access like the wiki?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Cool. All right, so we got,
Yeah, one other question.
Yeah.
You mentioned this KNet issue with
Yes.
with the line clients where it tries to authenticate you to the wrong realm.
if you type KENIT after you're logged in, yes.
Is it, I assume that if you give it the right realm.
Works just
you
fine.
renew, you get your new key and everything's all happy.
Right, and that was something else. If you type KENIT and just KENIT once you're logged in, Lion client bound to Lion server gives you the Lion server KDC. Okay?
Which doesn't work.
Which doesn't have any credentials in it, yeah.
Right.
If you do it with Lion client bound to Snow Leopard server, KENIT gives you the right thing, which points at the KDC over here, dc.psu.edu. In Yadin's testing over at Arts and Architecture, I might get this backwards, he left the machine name as part of the realm name, as part of the Open Directory realm name. So sparky.astro.psu.edu was his whole domain name, okay? I said, I want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
He said he was never able to get that working and then be able to get tickets on login without specifying the full email address. We were able to do it by making sure the steps were executed in the right order. But when I get back and do some more testing, I'm going to set up a Lion server and I'm going to leave the machine name as part of the realm because maybe Heimdall's doing something silly like, requiring it.
Now, when you say machine name, you mean the machine name of your OD server?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yeah, when you build the realm right here.
Yeah.
I've been taking that out so that it matches this.
Right, so your domain name and your realm name match,
Same.
which, yeah.
Right. Because that's what dc.ps, we're not binding to Sparky or we're not binding to Offsite or to Fido. There's a thought.
So
It wouldn't
I'm
work.
wondering did we check the Kerberos versions between Snow Leopard and Lion?
Yes, Heimdall still defaults to Kerberos v5 and you've got to force it to talk v4. Yeah, I went down that road too. So we're 22 after. We're not scheduled for a break for another 8 minutes, so I will give you the break and we'll come back here, 10:45?
10:45, we
10?
start again.
Cool. We'll be around. Thanks, guys, for coming out.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. This is part 2 of our integrating Lion into PSU auth case. First half, we did the actual Lion integration stuff into the PSU auth with Lion clients and such. This part, we're more going to go over a couple things. So Profile Manager, we're going to go over ASUS, Apple Software Update Server, and MCX, Managed Client for OS X. We're just going to cover mostly for the MCX part. We're just going to do the actual Lion clients. You can do iPhones and iPads, but at this point, we are not managing anything iOS-wise through our stuff. So all my screenshots are just for Lion clients. So first off, we're going to start with Profile Manager. So how do we set up Profile Manager? On your 10.7 server, using the server app, you have all of your services down the side, and one of them is Profile Manager. So you click on Profile Manager, slide it to on, and you're pretty much good to go. There was nothing really inside Profile Manager that you really had to do. One of the other things you needed also is the web server part, so you can actually manage Profile Manager. Profile Manager, since it's managed on the web, you can do it on pretty much any client. You can also do it on your iPads, but you cannot do it on your iPhones. The screen size just doesn't support that at this time. So then, how do we access Profile Manager? Simple, once you got your web server up and the Profile Manager part configured, pull up, in this case Safari, point to your server address, and you'll get to the Welcome to Lion server screen. And then, at the bottom here, we have a Profile Manager link, and brings us to our login page. Quite simple, put in your login information for one of your admin accounts on the Lion server, click login. So now we're going to go through pretty much all the settings and what you can actually control from within Profile Manager then. So once you log in, the first screen you'll get, you can see like all your devices. So here, we at the time, whenever I did this, we only had 5 devices. And each device you can either configure stuff through devices, device groups, so you can create groups. So if you want, like in our case, we have different departments that use stuff. So we can do different settings for like our IT group. Maybe we want them to have obviously more control over stuff than, say, in this example, our admin core. We want to be able to lock their machines down so that they're not breaking them all the time, so that we don't have to keep going fixing them. You can also see your users, so you can actually pick, filter stuff out by certain users as well. So if you want, I'm trying to think of an example. But if you just wanted to filter something out, I guess, for user, I don't have an example off the top of my head that we could use. But if you wanted a particular user to have certain settings, say you have a guest maybe coming into the building that's only doing their stuff there part-time, and you want to really lock their machine down so they're not trying to get access into your other data servers. And there's also what is that one? I cannot even read it. I believe it's just a group, so you could group all your people into separate groups the same way you would do your device groups. You could group your people into groups too. So in all the settings so if you have if you have settings for individual users, like multiple settings for different things, they'll all combine together into one. And then you can also see there's an activity section, so you can actually see what activity is going on. So if your stuff is being pushed out to devices, or if you're having issues where items aren't being pushed, you could look in here. And then also you can see your completed task so that it pushes, and then it'll actually show you that there was a success, that it actually pushed. So then when you go back in, these are the main settings that you can set for all your devices, your groups, etc. You can set like password options where you can set the requirement, what you want your password complexity to be, length, out of the 4, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers, you can set that in there. You can push settings such as if you want all your laptops to have your VPN settings for your specific items. They are grouped as well too. You can see at the top they have macOS and iOS, so you're controlling both settings for your actual desktops or laptops, and then also your mobile clients. And there are also sections for if you just want to set clients just for your iOS, so if you want to push calendar or Exchange profiles or something like that just for mobile devices, you can push it that way. And then there's also a section just for your Mac thing, so if you wanted to set up the dock, like if you wanted the dock just to be on the right, or one of the biggest ones is probably the software update. For our example, we use software update to push back to our Apple software update server, so that way we control what updates get pushed to everything. So for example, the big one for that one was we had everything working for 10.7 up to before 10.7.3 came out. Realized in our test environment if 10.7.3 got pushed, local clients had to be unplugged to log in. They would not use it had to use their cache credentials, not their Penn State Curb auth stuff. So we were able to control the 10.7.3 update from getting out to anybody before we had mass chaos. And then also back up, whenever you go back up to your devices, you have like the profile activity and about tabs on either your devices or the other items that are under there is your device groups and users. And the activity will show you that items that have pushed and if they succeeded, and then put a date and timestamp on them as well. And then the about section is really nice. You can go in and actually then do inventory items for your machine, so you can see what the details are, so how much disk space that they have, if the RAM needs upgraded on them. I believe it'll tell you what OS they're running in there. Yeah, it'll tell you the software version they're running. So in this case, we were running 10.7.1. Whenever I took those screenshots, you're going to see, if you expand like the restrictions, you can see what restrictions that you're actually putting on that machine. And then you can see your groups. And the big one too is nice. You can see installed applications. So you can see if people are putting stuff on machines maybe that you don't want them to be, or if someone calls you up with an issue where they're trying to do something that's only a feature in Office 2011 and they're telling you, yes, I have Office 2011. It's like, well, really, do you? You can go in here and you could see that maybe they only have Office 2008 on their Mac. You can also, back on the Profile tab then, you have the options to, for all your machines, when they're enrolled, you can lock them. So if you wanted to lock them, you can lock your devices. I believe it's restricted, though, to a 6-digit number. You can't just use any phrase or anything that you want like that. So it's a 6-digit number. It'll reboot the machine into like a firmware lock screen, and the only way to get through that is to actually put the password in. You would actually wipe them too then, so if someone would take one or if one gets lost, you can send the wipe command, and the next time it comes online, it'll throw out the wipe command, and then you're also able to see that then if you wanted, back through your active tasks, your completed tasks, you could see if the wipe was actually successful or not. This is back into, these are the same settings that we did for the device. You can do them for groups as well. And like I said, our big one that we were really pushing for all of our groups, so for this group we were pushing software updates is the main thing we were pushing for them. You're also able to see the members then of a group, so the groups that you have. Once you go into the group, there's the tabs at the top, so you got profile members, activity about, and apps, so you can see all the members that are in that particular group. So enrolling devices into Profile Manager, there's 2 ways to do it. The first one is mainly if you are rolling out 10.7 server or rolling out Profile Manager on 10.7 server now, and you have devices that you haven't done an image with. And the second way is more if you already have images, the best way to do it automatically. There's ways where you can place your enrollment profile on the local machine and then have it automatically enroll. So the first one is kind of the generic way. If you go back to your web address of your server, in our case it's cupertino.ssri.psu.edu/mydevices on the device, you can then enroll the device after you log in, and then once you log in, you can pull down the profiles that you want. In this case, we just did settings for everyone. You'll be introduced with your install device enrollment screens, where you just click continue through. Are you sure? Of course we are. And then the big one is the remote management one. These are the ones that allow you to do the wipes and the locks on your machines then. So then we are sure, yes, we know we are. And then you'll be at the end, assuming it worked, you'll get presented with the actual certificate of everything. And the big one is, obviously they put it in red for you, of what all you can do then with your machine. So you can erase all the data, you can add or remove the configuration profiles, and you can also lock the screen. And then the other ones, like I said before, you can query the information on the machine to do like an inventory roundup. And then once it's enrolled, you can actually see the machine in there, and then you can lock and wipe it from here as well. So, and then this is the other one. This is in Apple's documentation. If you take the enrollment profile, download it to your machine or to the machine that you want to make the image of, and you put it in var db configuration profile setup, and then after you create the image and the machine boots up, it'll actually auto enroll the device into Profile Manager for you so that they're automatically there. Haven't used that one yet, so I'm not sure how it works if you're doing images and then the machine name. So you probably have to, I'm assuming you're going to get a bunch with the same name in there, and then you're going to have to go in and probably physically rename them to the actual device. So Apple Software Update Server, how do we set that up? Back through the server tools, the server admin, you can go in and then under your list of, I think I have it on, I don't. So you have your services. If we would have clicked on cupertino.ssri.psu.edu, there is a tab at the very end for services, and then you get a list of everything, and SUS is actually one of them. So this is just showing right now that it's actually running, how many updates we copied, and how many we have enabled. You can see the log for everything, so everything that's done. So if it's pulled down updates, if it's having problems connecting back to Apple, and then at the bottom we see that the sync was complete for this one. And then updates, this is the main section that you would use, so you can do refreshes on all your stuff over here. Then if you need to manually force it to go out to see the updates, you have your enabled status here, whether if it's checked or not, and you're forcing it out to everyone. And then you also have the date that it's been pulled down and the version numbers in this case. So like I said before, we were able to stop the 10.7.3 from being pushed out before anyone else could get it, that it would screw up, that they wouldn't be able to log into their Penn State Auth Access account. And then also you can do other things where you can store updates in different directories if you want. So if you want to store everything on one local, either local space or an NFS space or something like that, you can also do that as well. And like I said, this is just a screenshot we were able to put in our server then for the actual updates that we wanted to do to point to our update server. And then that was the actual screenshot I was looking for before, where you actually have the services, and software update is one of them. MCX, this is probably the biggest one that probably everyone's interested in, so we can do the mobile profiles that you actually want to do. In our case, we do mobile profiles, and we sync everything back to, here at Penn State, we have PassSpace, so you have space on an actual Penn State server that's yours, so that you actually have somewhat of a backup scheme as well. So back through workgroup managers, where you're going to set this one up, and you can also push the MCX settings out through Profile Manager if you want. In our case, what we did is we created an actual mobility group. Since we have users that have, say, iMacs, there's no point of creating a mobile account for those users, but we do want to create mobile accounts for the people that have, laptops. So we created a group mobility, and then you click on the actual mobility here, and then you're granted, this is where you're presented with all your options then. So in our case, we obviously want to create the mobile account. For testing purposes, we were unchecking the we were checking the require confirmation one, so we could actually see that we were getting presented with that. For your users, you'd obviously want to uncheck it, as I have here, so that they're not presented with that and you're not getting flooded with calls of, do I click continue or do I not click continue? So then you can actually set your accounts to expire then. So if you want mobile accounts to expire in a certain amount of days, weeks, months, etc., you can do it there as well. And you also have rules. So in this case, this is a big one for us. So we want, when do you want, what directories do you want to sync? In our case, we want library because we want all their settings to go across whatever machine they're on. So we want them to have the same background every time or whatever stuff that they have there. We want their documents to back up, and we want their desktop to back up as well. Another big one is what items do you want to skip? And this one's big because you don't want to be copying people's iTunes libraries up. So especially in our case, since we're syncing with Pass and you have a limited amount of space, you obviously don't want them filling up their Pass space with whatever purchases they've made on iTunes, whatever movies, music, etc. that they've used. The home sync as well, you can specify the times that you actually want it to sync. So you can, in our case, we're taking away the option for them to manually sync it, and we're forcing it to do it at log in, log out, and in the background. We've had to change this for some of our users. Some of them get gripey because they don't like to see it when they're logging in, or at the end of the day, they just want to get out of the building and they want to get home, so we've had to turn that off. Probably the biggest one is making sure that it's working in the background, and you can give them the option to do it manually if you want. And then the options, you can change how often then in the background or manually that it syncs. In this case, we're doing in the background every 20 minutes. You can also do with FileVault, you can use MCX to push out FileVault encryption. Now this only encrypts though their user directory. This will not encrypt the whole entire hard drive. So if you're looking to do FileVault full encryption, that's in a different spot. This will only encrypt their local space for each user. And you can specify, the size limit as well. So if you only want to encrypt a certain amount of space for them, or how much space you want them to take up on the hard drive, so that you're not encrypting, like I said, their whole entire iTunes library. And then these are, in our case, for here at Penn State, we are doing the home directory part, where we're actually specifying, where we want their home directory and their NFS home directories to be instead of being local, so we can do the sync back and forth between the two locations. And that's just a more, so you can actually see the whole path that we have to put in for each user. Kind of went through it super quick. I'm not good at doing this thing. As you can probably see, my face is probably about as red as his shirt right now. So I think the big part was like our first part, and this part's more of just a general overview of using those tools. I'm sure everyone's probably got about 15 other presentations from this week of Puppet and Deploy Studio and such that you can use. But these are the tools that Apple provides you for free. So if you're doing cost analysis stuff and you need to, be on the free route, this is a route you can go if you're managing devices and stuff. Question? No? Anybody? Pedro? You do have to get a certificate for Profile Manager. You have to get what's called a push certificate, and Apple has made that entirely easier than they used to before. You used to have to go through the whole setup, and you'd get to the end. To get the push certificate, you'd put in all your information, click Get Certificate. It would sit there and spin and say, can't work. And you just have to keep there, and you had to keep continuing to hit get, and eventually it would just work. Now they've changed it to actually integrate into your iTunes account, so that all you do is plug in that information, it auto-generates, and boom, you're good to go. And you can also use a self-signed certificate or any other certificate that you would, request from, like a CA cert that you can get and use as well. Anything else? Well, thanks for coming. You had good question stuff as far as he had questions about doing the Kerberos auth at his facility. So, and thank you all for coming. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Thank you.